Hey, and welcome back to the Teach Bigger podcast. I'm here with Chris Mosley and Chris Pratt, and I'm Tyler Lamont. And today, what we are talking about are the three E's of virtual learning, I guess.
There you go. Yeah. So the three E's. We were just chatting, as we always do. And, we have two sides of this right now. We have the teacher side and we have the student side. There's also the admin side, but we're talking about, direct learning here. And we're like, what is it that like we've experienced and that we're trying to work on ourselves on this end to be just as effective as possible? And maybe that, like, when we were doing live teaching, that we didn't have to necessarily think about it just because we had that, that medium, but like now it's different. So you have to kind of make adjustments. And what do I have to do to be able to get information to the kids in an effective manner? So we just kind of brainstorming and we kind of, threw around some things and came up with a couple of, tips, or,
tips. I guess it's things that don't translate well to virtual learning, I would say, because you don't have the face-to-face interaction, but you still have to do these things.
Mm-hmm. So, I guess you don't think about it too until someone calls it out. So, the first one that I was thinking about was, has to do like with your face. So I had the experience like a couple of years ago, and I taught online before all of this happened. And I taught online to students in China. And so interviewing for it, I never had that experience before. And while I was interviewing, like I would, talk and stuff like that. And it was super weird at first. Like all of it was super weird. And the person interviewing me said, "You're great. You have high energy. Sometimes your face, you don't smile. And it comes out to be real stern." And I'm like, And I always think like I'm always laughing and always joking. So I guess I was really focused and trying to do a good job. And so when maybe I was thinking or listening, I would kind of just sit there and not thinking about my face, And so she told me that. And so after that, I'm like, okay, I have to make sure. So the kids would come on and I would make sure to smile, and it smiled so much like it hurts my face, And it was like, hey, how are you? And then I would wait. So instead of saying like, hey, how are you? And then stop, and you have to think about that. So, cause they're still looking at you, and all they have is your facial, like they don't have the rest of your body right now. Mm-hmm. They just have your face, so that's all they can read off of. So, were you saying something, Tyler?
I was gonna say, not to mention the latency that might happen between like you and somebody else. Like if they don't have strong internet, or like, especially like that, like if you're teaching somebody that's on the other side of the world, like that might be like maybe a half a second or a second latency, which you might think, well, that's not that long, but you sit there like and think like, hey, how's it going?
Pause.
Hey, how's it going? You know what I mean? And so yeah. I think that there's something to definitely be said with that.
Well, so like, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, one thing to think about is this: that why are kids, for the most part, tuning in to anything online? It's for entertainment purposes, right? So you have to fit into that mold. Like, you have to be entertaining. Like, your face has to be exciting.
You have to edutain.
Right, edutainment. Because if not, they're watching, they're sitting here watching live stream gaming and all these other things, and then they get to you and you're like,
blah, 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 blah,
right.
blah, blah.
I mean, it's like Ferris Bueller's Day Off times 10.
Yeah. You're so right about that. And I realized after that, it kind of became my norm, so I would have to kind of step it up a bit. I feel like I'm a happy-go-lucky person already, and I smile a lot. But when I was on there, it was not natural for me, so I had to remind myself to do that. And so now, I'm making sure I do that even more. And my kids, they know me, so but I'm smiling, and I have to remind myself to, do that even more, so they can get the positive and engaging, smiling person that I try to be. And I was even sharing that with a coworker who very stern, like he's not really high energy already. And so like he's even like adjusting, because I said you have to think about it, because all they have is your face and you need to smile more. And he doesn't smile in person too much. And so I was telling you got to like put a note on your computer to smile more, and the kids will be, respond better. So I think the first one is just like giving energy in your face, because I mean, you can have your hands, but you can't walk around, like you can't have the proximity control that also helps to mold the classroom and help to change the energy. So you have to take that energy that you would do that and have it in your face, whether it be smiling, your eyes, like looking at the camera, something like that. Once you do those type of things, I think it'll help engage the kids more, because it's higher, higher energy. So putting energy in your face.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about just whenever you are in a physical environment in the classroom, the more energy you have, the more engaged the kids become. And it's the same thing if you think about, like, think of the best presenters you've seen and the best, maybe seminars or whatever that you've been to. They probably all have this in common. The speaker was passionate and they were energetic. Like, nobody walks away from a conference or a seminar or something where it was like monotone and go like, that was the best information I've ever heard. Like, right. You don't even remember what they said. And it's the same thing with these kids. They're gonna latch a hold and be more engaged in your online learning when you, for lack of a better term, put on the show. You've got to have the energy.
And here's how you know that you're doing it right. You'll be tired when you're done.
Mm-hmm. Just like regular teaching.
Yeah. If your heart rate goes up, if you feel like, man, whew, then you know that your energy was high and you were definitely, captivating the kids, because it takes a lot of effort. Mm-hmm. So there you go.
I think one of the reasons why it probably takes even more effort than a normal, like if you were face to face, because what I'm finding out is that like social interaction is all about the transfer of energy. Like my energy from here going to transfer to them, and then it bounces back and it comes back to me. Like, and I remember when I first started teaching that I did that smile thing, because I remember thinking that like, oh, I just gave all these kids all this really good information, and then like I'd like look at them and they looked like they were in trouble. They like thought that they were in trouble or something like that. And then I started teaching my lessons and then smiling a little bit more, and then they realized that like I wasn't upset or anything. Mm-hmm. So like I was starting to be able to feed off the energy that I was sending out and bouncing back. But when you're in front of a camera, in front of a black screen, or like whatever, like that energy, you're just giving it and you're not getting anything back.
That's hard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, really hard.
And that's why it's hard to be a YouTuber, because you're literally talking to yourself all the time, and you have to have that energy.
Yeah, and I guess that's another topic we can talk about, like how to be on the camera for a later episode. But like the biggest thing that you have to get over is like feeling like a tool. Like you feel ridiculous when you're in front of the camera and you're like, and doing all this like crazy stuff and like whatever, and like
but it translates well through the camera though when on the other side.
Exactly. So next time you see some random like TikToker doing a dumb little dance, like, and you're sitting there in public and you're like, wow, that's really stupid, it's translating really, really well on the other end of that screen.
No, I think they look dumb on the other side too.
Now, mostly the TikTok you sent of yourself the other day was highly entertaining.
Oh, I mean,
All right, so energize your face, right? So be a performer.
Energize your face.
Yeah.
Be a performer, yeah.
Okay, what else?
And then, so I remember, so Tyler, we were talking about like what you just said, right? About the silence. Like, tell us about that one.
So that's something that I noticed, especially in the last few weeks, because I've been doing a lot of new information. I've been trying to give them new information, a lot of culture and leadership type stuff, where it is just me talking and hoping that they're going to like apply it and like whatever with their lives. And I noticed that there were these moments where there was silence, and in a normal classroom, like it's that moment of like when you're in the classroom and the kids are they're all engaged and they're finally paying attention, they're finally all still, and they're all eyes are on you, and you realize that you just burned through all of your teaching, and now it's like, and it's like this split second where you're so used to immediately to go back to redirect behavior or like yell at them for talking or whatever, but it's not that because they're engaged in you and you're like, oh my gosh, like I have to come up with something else to say. Well, virtually that's not there because they're already quiet because I muted them all. Like I finally have like the mute button to mute all of my students. It's whether they're actually listening to me, whatever. Point is that when I'm talking and I'm teaching, I still feel that in the back of my mind. I'm like, oh no, I have to keep talking because like the I have to keep the flow of the classroom going. Da da da. Not knowing and not accounting for the latency of whether the internet connection that's happening or the fact that they have to move their mouse to mute or unmute themselves or to like type something into the chat, like that all takes longer than if they were to just raise their hand and me call on them. So you have to be okay with the silence and understand that if there's silence going on, that doesn't mean a disruption is going to break out like it would in a face-to-face class. So that's hard to do.
Yeah, I guess too, because and I think it might differ from teacher to teacher because
All your kids
like
are already quiet.
and Michael, yeah. So well, not all the time, but for the most part, and say until I say speak, then they can speak. No, but no, but like our environment, like the norm is for like still and quiet. That's what we try to go for. And so for me, when like that's what I'm used to like teaching in. So in this environment, it's really like almost the perfect environment. I mean, even though like sometimes I'll break it because I'll laugh and joke or whatever. And sometimes I like it when the kids just like say things. Like I encourage that. But for the most part, learning happens when you have that open channel. That makes sense. So
yeah.
So for me, that's pretty normal. But I think this is something that's said for other teachers who they're used to saying, "Hey, stop that. Hey, quit that. Hey, da, da, da." So that's part of how they deliver information. Like it's information, behavior fixing. Information, behavior. It might be an adjustment for them. So they're just gonna have to get used to. I guess it's gonna force them to think more because I don't have to necessarily correct behaviors now. I just have to give information and try to be as captivating as possible, giving energy in my face, and being okay with the silence. So that's something to kind of to think about.
Yeah. No, I think it's definitely
embracing the silence.
It's definitely different because like if there was silence in my classroom, then it meant that like there was time for interpretation for the children. And now instead of me telling the kids to be quiet or like sit down and like whatever, stop poking Johnny, instead of telling them all that, I'm just telling, hey, make sure your camera's on.
I know.
Like it literally all my classroom management and all my behavior problems kind of went out the window, and all I'm really making sure is happening is that their camera's on.
Yeah. I know. I was thinking about this the other day. So, everyone in the Zoom meeting that we do, when you come in, it mutes you, right?
Yeah.
So you're automatically muted. So for the most part, unless I want them to speak, like they say on mute. But there's a lot of times it's like, hey, just unmute yourself and talk because they're not gonna like overdo it, Well, there's like one or two who just like to hear themselves. So I just have to, that's the shadow outers.
Yeah.
That's the one to like take themselves off of mute without permission. So I just kind of say, hey, such and such, don't remove yourself off of mute. I'm going to remove you from the room. And then all the eyes get really big and they're like, so, I mean, I hate to be like that. Yeah. But it's like, hey, right now, that's kind of expectation is that this is a disruption because my voice is being heard and then yours jumps in there for you to say whatever you want to say, try to be funny, But, and some teachers probably deal with that or not. You just set the expectation, hey, right now, I need you engaged, like keep yourself on mute because of all the different sounds. We want to make sure everyone can hear. And, you have to you have to remind them. You still have to remind them like you're still in a classroom. It just looks different.
So ultimately kind of what we're hitting at then, if I'm understanding, is that teachers have to be a little maybe more planned than normal because you're going to have
because you're on.
Because you're on, and you're gonna have that awkward silence. So the way that the way you embrace it is with preparation and make sure that you have enough content to flow through your lesson, because you don't have to factor in a lot of the corrective behavior. Okay.
Yeah.
And you know, ideally, that's what we'd want it to be like in a physical environment as well.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you normally do that, then it's good. And if you're normally used to teaching, well, I mean, there's all different environments that are productive, but when you have like instruction, boom, clear communication, then you're probably okay.
Yeah, and I think that you need to be on even more than you would ever normally be, because you're not getting that bounce back from them. You're not getting any energy from the kids.
You have to get it from yourself. You have to get it from yourself.
Like, you literally just have to constantly give, and you're never going to get anything back.
I know.
Okay, so
you have to be self-assuring.
Yeah. All right, so we're looking at tips to help teachers today to really up their virtual lesson game, their presentation. Okay.
Yeah, the presentation. Yeah, these things will help in presentation.
Yeah. So it's
and
about,
things that don't necessarily translate, or they translate differently from the real classroom.
Gotcha. So it's about energizing your face, being animated, having energy, being excited, making it fun, embracing the silence. Okay. So having a plan for the fact that there's more downtime. Okay. So what else?
And then the other one, what do we say? Oh yeah, this is a good thing too. And we had a conversation about all classrooms. I mean, just normal, right? Like, there are going to be things that are distracting, you know? And if you think about it now, kids are surrounded by distractions, okay? The computer and their phone, like staring at their computer, they have their phone out. Some of them have the same earphones they just finished playing games with. Some of them have the game up on this side and their phone, you know. And so things that, you know, normally would, my pet peeves, you know, and burn me or whatever, I try not to get too bogged down in it, because, you know, because if I stop and I take my attention on that, then it would get away from instruction. Because if I stop, it's no downtime. And some of those things that could be eliminated by a look, or, you know, eliminated by me getting off or out of the front of the classroom and go and stand by somebody, if they were doing anything, you know, those things can be avoided, and I can seamlessly keep going with my lesson. But if I stop now, then everyone else loses instruction. So any type of distraction, like if I see a kid, I don't know, doing anything else besides whatever, you know, being perfect.
Okay, so let me ask you this: distractions that are happening, or that can happen now in the virtual room, in the virtual classroom, I guess it's different than, because what I'm getting at is that a kid can literally change their entire background to like Star Wars, like the Death Star could be blown up behind them or something like that. Now, is that worse or better or not as bad or whatever compared to a kid who's burnt down, like, meh, you know, in the classroom?
I don't know, like some of that, okay, because I know on previous episodes I said this, like one of the kids, they had my face on like a elf thing, and you know, I had a thing today, and the kid had a presentation for my leadership, and they put my face on Yoda or something like that. I don't remember what it was, and I mean, it's just funny. So I think in those moments, they're not as bad as like the real classroom, because so like I'll mention it and then I'll just move on. And usually, you know, they'll just get over it. You know, they'll come back to what's going on. And because the other kids see it, I'm not going to act like I don't see it. You know, I'll say something about it. And usually it's just them trying to be funny. And I'll try to have the mood to be lighter anyway, you know, than I would normally have it. So I'm like, Tyler, fix it right now. And they're like, you know, and then I keep going, you know.
Well, what I'm thinking is maybe not a distraction for the class, for the kids, but like a distraction for you. If you have the grid up, you have all your kids up here, whatever, and they're all like sitting in tent, and you see one kid who's in the middle of the screen. He's like a DJ, and he's like, you know what I mean? Like,
I would probably just say something. I would talk, and then I would say, hey, Tyler, get it together really quick. You know, like I'll say something, and then just keep on moving. You know, like, or I would just say, what are you doing? You know, like, you know, and just to, you know, why not?
Well, like, and Tyler, share what you were saying about like how sometimes the chat box can distract you as well.
Oh yeah, I know a lot of times like when I'm teaching or whatever, and I do like this feature that a kid or somebody can just immediately type their question into the chat box while I'm talking, so that way I'm not waiting for like the social moment for when I can raise my hand and they don't feel like they have to wait or that they've wasted time or whatever. But I know that like I'll try to read it really fast because it pops up on the screen first before it goes like away,
Yeah.
and I'll try to read it really fast, but I can't read it really fast while I'm in the middle of a thought, like trying to teach and make sure I'm like giving the information that I need to. So then I'll end up stopping or whatever, or like especially like and it's not that it's bad that the kids do this, but like sometimes like the kids will say something smart, like they'll like make a little pun or a joke or whatever. But it's hard for me to tell if it's a joke or not. But I'll pick up on like one or two words, and I'm like, wait, what was that? And then I had like, I stop, and then I like go in the chat and like I read it or whatever.
See, maybe I'm a control freak, but I cut the chat off, and I only because the chat was on. You know, like we were all learning how to use these online platforms, so the chat was there, so it was just open. I didn't even know that was an option. And then my kids, being the smart Alex that they were just like typing things, you know, and just being silly because they don't have a chance to do that, you know. So, and then it was becoming distracting. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna stop that, you know.
Yeah.
But
well, and I guess that's the difference between Zoom and Google Meet, because you use Zoom and we use Google Meet, and the chat doesn't go up like on Twitch or like on YouTube Live, or it doesn't go up like that for Google. It just kind of pops up real quick and then it fades away, then you have to click the chat box for it to pop up.
It goes up and it stays there, and then people are like, you know, I'm like, oh no. So, well, if you have a question, I'm like, you don't have any questions? So I pause, and then I've created a culture in the real life where, hey, if you have a question, you know, I'll stop, and that's your question. And so the kids, they just kind of do that, but we're not going to put it on the chat box because the kids they're kids. So.
Well, so I mean, basically, you know, what we're talking about is eliminating distractions, and that may mean that literally, like in Mosley's case, he's blocking the chat, so maybe that's eliminating distraction. But like in Tyler's case, it may be a matter of just choosing to not be distracted by it. Like if it's not an issue, if it's not that big of a deal, then don't let yourself, if you're delivering content, don't let yourself get distracted by every little thought to where it derails you, because this is a virtual environment and it is different.
Yeah, and this just popped in my head too, and I don't know why I didn't think of this way sooner, but that's like someone saying something in the chat is almost as and it popping up like on the Google Meet, like just right there, is almost the same as someone blurting out in the middle of your class and then you stopping to address it, or stopping to not just address it but to actually answer the question, you know. And then the difference is that like the student shouldn't have blurted out, like that's not okay, but like them putting something in the chat is acceptable to an extent, you know what I mean? Like like they're not disrupting the class and everybody else.
Well, and I think that's where it's about establishing your online classroom culture, and we've talked a little bit about like having procedures or whatever in place. So if you as the facilitator and you as the teacher are going to make sure, and the kids understand that you're going to give them that time. So it may be like, okay guys, right now we're going to shut down the chat, we're not going to chat, I've got some important things to share with you. As long as they know there's a point coming where you say, okay, chat box is open. If you have a comment, if you want to ask a question, whatever, now's the time. And then give that built-in time in the classroom. Maybe it's a part of your lesson that there's 3 minutes where we just open the chat box and we respond. And then the kids know that's coming. They're less likely to interrupt what you're saying because they know they're going to get that outlet. So that's my advice.
Well, I mean, I know like in the adult meetings I've been in, sometimes they use the chat to, you know, clarification, because you have like the one presenter, like I know in our meeting we had like 150 people there.
Right.
So, you know, and that way, like the principal's saying something and she says, you know, I don't know, does anyone have anything on there or any clarification point? And then someone would, instead of having to interrupt while the principal's saying that, someone's like, it is this and that, blah, 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 for clarification.
So it's that's why it's important to establish your culture and establish your norms, and that everybody understands this is how this classroom operates. So
And go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, like, you have to treat your virtual classroom the same way you do your normal classroom, and it can't be the wild wild west just because it's the internet. You can't go like, well, right. You can't go, well, it's the internet, so let's just see what happens. I mean, you are the teacher, and it's up to you to set the structure and the framework of how everyone's going to interact with each other. And and we can maybe do an episode about this, but I highly suggest that, especially looking to August, whenever you start school back up again, if we're in a virtual environment, I'm going to highly suggest that people consider creating collaboratively with your class, creating an online social contract where every kid has input and says, as a online environment, here's how we're going to run the class, and here's how we're going to respect each other, and here's how we're going to communicate well virtually, because it's different than a normal classroom. And once we've established those norms, you can have that up on the screen or whatever, and if somebody's out of line, you say, hey, remember we said we weren't right, remember we aren't going to chat until we say it's time to chat, because that's something we all agreed on, and we put it back on the kids, and that helps.
Yeah.
Or you just shut down the chat altogether, like Mosley.
Right. You don't even let the kids interact.
Yeah.
Right. Nothing but
Help 'em
lectures.
Listen to me. Do you know what my kids did today? Okay, so they gave a presentation and they said, here's our teacher, whatever, and he's the CEO of Look at Me.
Wow.
I'm like, oh, whatever.
Lookatme.com.
Look at me. I'm like, okay. And then he even imitated the way I said it.
Well, that's how you know they like you.
Right now. So he won't.
All right. So
anyway.
the three E's.
What are they?
To up to personally up your presentation, right?
Yeah.
So the first one is energize your face, right? Thank you, Mr. Mosley.
Show me what you got, Brad. Let me see your energy face. Okay.
Right. Okay. The second
Let
one.
me see yours, Tyler.
No, that's creepy. That's just creepy.
That's creepy serial killer face.
Come to my online class, kids.
That's so funny. I know.
Let me teach you.
Right. It's like the clown, crazy clown. All right. What's the second one?
Okay, so the second one is learning how to embrace the silence and realizing that the pacing of the class is going to be different for different reasons, and you can't let the silence either one throw you off, or two where you don't have enough content planned to where it doesn't fill in the lesson time frame. Am I making sense?
But
you want to say
I
that
think it's more of the don't let it throw you off, because
It's gonna be there.
Yeah, it'll be there.
And then what's the last one?
And then the last one is to eliminate distractions, whether that is, tangibly eliminate them, or to eliminate them within yourself to where you don't allow yourself to be distracted. It's probably both of those things. So anyways, I hope that this has helped you, this podcast.
It has helped me. I feel empowered. I feel enriched.
Well, you need
I feel like I can just go to sleep now.
So you feel like you're ready to go lecture again?
Yes, I'm ready to lecture 12 more hours. Let's go.
With no chat box.
No chat box. Cut it off. Listen to me. Look at
I have
me.
a lot to say. So anyways, well, thanks for tuning in, and we hope that you can take this back into your virtual world and make it happen. So we'll see you here next time.